Thank you very much for joining me today. Before we go on, I think I need to take my hat off. I'm a little warm. It's in the middle of summer, right? And I'm wearing a sweatshirt inside. Yes, I am cranking my AC, and this hat is making me warmer than I want to be. But there are a couple of things I want to share with you all. And before we get started into what today's show is about, which is the Canon R50V, which is a very cool little camera. It's a mirrorless camera, crop sensor. I have a few things I want to share for those of you who might be interested in the camera. I am using it in this live stream. I have been using it for the past, I don't know, I'm going to say 2 months. It might be longer. And I'll explain to you why my time references aren't making a lot of sense. But before we move on, and this whole reason for my hat, wearing my hat today, is there used to be a show that Scott Balcom would have every Friday that I really enjoyed. So I really enjoyed live shows. I'm not even sure. I'll say this. I like creators in general, right? So I've been a supporter of creators over time. Clearly, you guys see I'm a big fan of Uncensored. That's with Brandon Washington every single Friday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. If you haven't caught one of those, you've been under a rock, because there's no way that if you're in this space, you would not want to be a part of that community. But if you have been under a rock, you probably should check it out because he's very, very consistent, has been for a couple years, every Friday at 11 a.m. Central, Brandon, Washington. It's the Creative Fam channel. So it's his second channel. And you will want to check that out. So going back to Scott, Scott used to always host a show on Fridays at 4. He was as consistent as you can be, you know, given that we are all in this industry and we all need to make a priority out of what pays the bills. There was a time where I tried to have a live show at 4 p.m. Central every Friday. It just worked out for me in that time frame. But because I'm a big fan of creators and I really enjoyed Scott's show and who he had on the show and what he talked about on the show and what he had access to on the show, it was easy for me to say, I'm not going to attempt to compete for his audience at 4 p.m. on Fridays. And I became a consumer. So I stopped doing my show for a number of reasons. Why the hat? I was invited on Scott's show a time or two. And I think the very first time I was invited on this show, I was wearing a hat and I was probably wearing a red hat at the time. And I don't know why we got talking about hair or whatever. And he's like, no, dude, just leave your hat on or whatever. And I'm thinking, dude, I haven't had hair since I was 17. I joined the military. They shaved my head, which, by the way, they also made me pay for. And I'm sure that's very normal. But me thinking I'm going into the military, they're making me shave my head. And my hair used to be long. Like my bangs would touch my chin. So I had really long hair, you know, when I was a teenager. So they shaved my head and then they're like, you know, it's whatever it was, 750, 850, whatever it was at the time. This is back in 1990. So we're talking dinosaur years. And I was like, I got to pay for my haircut. I didn't even ask for a haircut. But fast forward to when Scott invites me in and we're in the green room and we're talking about sort of what the show's going to be about and so on. And Scott's like, yeah, man, I mean, if you're more comfortable wearing your hat, just wear your hat. And I'm thinking, I haven't had hair since I was 17. Fast forward to now, I'm warm. I'm taking off my hat. I'm very comfortable not having hair. It's not a big deal. Hair, if anything, makes it so that I don't need to, how do I say this? There's less for me to worry about when I get out of the shower. And I apologize, I've been sick. So I'm getting over I don't know, a head cold, cough, something or other that just happened. So it's yeah, it's kind of interesting. But going back to this whole heat and heat management thing, right? So I'm wearing a sweatshirt, I'm indoors, I'm cranking the air conditioner. I think the AC in the space is set to 67 degrees. That is very comfortable for me. And yet I'm still feeling a little warm. So, Brandon, Jarrell, if you're watching this, I need some swag that is not sweatshirt. That way I don't have to bake while I'm doing my lives. And I know I don't have to, but I'm wearing it because I'm a fan and I really want more and more of this community to make it onto your lives at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time on Fridays. So, real quick, I need to check a couple text messages because I don't know why I'm getting text messages. and I want to make sure that nothing is horrible. So that was my wife essentially telling me how to make dinner because she's not here right now. And she's, I guess, concerned that I might be getting hungry, which is fine. You got to love her because she cares. And I really appreciate it. So, one last thing before we get into the Canon R50V, which there are lots of good things to talk about. And then there are a couple things that are unfortunate, but hopefully they fix them when they come out with a full frame version of the R50V, which I am really looking forward to and hopeful. Okay. And that is, I'm going to go here and I'm going to share this. Well, probably not that. But I want to share. Let's see, is that showing? Yeah, it is. Okay, good. Artlist is one of my favorite all-time movie all-time royalty-free music platforms for reasons beyond the fact that they chose to sponsor the channel. This is not a sponsored segment from Artlist. They didn't ask me to do this, but they have some super high quality music that I really enjoy, that makes it super easy to license for both commercial use and personal use. And the reason why in my thumbnail, not my thumbnail, my title, I put Canon R50V and then I put Cartel Kiss of Death is because I found this song, which you guys heard if you were here, during the 3-minute or so intro into the live stream. This song right here. Okay, I'm just going to say this is high quality, incredibly well produced, full blown version of a song that you can use for your own projects when you want to, and it's available in this amazing platform put together by Artlist. This is one of hundreds. We use Artlist on a daily basis on a minimum of 5 projects a day and maybe as many as 20. That's how awesome and why it is that I put that on the thumbnail, or I'm sorry, on my title today. So now let's get into the nitty gritty about the Canon EOS R50V. And I have no idea how many people are watching because I'm not monitoring, so I apologize for that. If any comments do come in, I believe I should be able to see them. But, I'm a little rusty. I haven't live streamed in a while. So if I miss any comments, I will try to respond after the live stream. So, Canon R50V. I ordered it. I pre-ordered it, right? So I ordered it right before it launched. I received mine on a Friday before the launch date, which was the Monday following the Friday that I received it. The reason why I bought it specifically is because I needed or wanted a camera that was better than a webcam and not as bulky as my what was I using before that? My Pocket 6K full frame L mount by Blackmagic. That's what I used to use as my webcam. And I bought it for a number of reasons. I bought it because, one, it was smaller. Two, it had the RF mount, so I have a lot of RF lenses. So I was able to use RF lenses if I wanted to. Three, it allowed me to connect directly to my computer using USB-C. So it would behave like a webcam. Four, it had C-Log 3, which then allowed me to essentially get not just better dynamic range, but also better tonality on my skin and not make it look so plasticky. And then the possibility, if I wanted better audio than what the internal audio might be, again, not knowing, right, when I bought the camera, I knew that I could use the Tascam unit that sits right into the hot shoe, communicates with the camera, allows me to use XLR, or allows me to bring a signal in from a mixer, which is what I'm doing in this case, straight into the camera, and then allows me to broadcast out. All of that I just said is true, and it works. Let's go through some of the shortcomings. First off, it's a crop sensor camera, right? Which really means it's a Super 35, and there's nothing wrong with Super 35. Super 35 allows you to have shallow depth of field. You can tell because I should be, hopefully, in focus. And then the picture that's right behind me here of Bert should be blurry. But truth be told, if I wanted to, I could just about touch it, which really means it's less than 4 feet away from me. So you are able to get shallow depth of field if you use the right lens with the right aperture. You should know that because this is a crop sensor camera, a Super 35, you will and should expect that if you're using an aperture of, say, f2.8 or higher, so f4, f5.6, and so on, not only will you lose the depth of field, so this plane where I'm in focus, the picture's not in focus, and so on, you should also expect that this becomes noisy. Under here, this area will become noisy. The good news is that on this camera system, we don't have what Blackmagic has in the past suffered from, which is fixed pattern noise. It doesn't mean we don't have any noise. We have noise, right? Again, aperture 2.8 or higher. And I believe the kit lens, and I did buy the kit lens, I'm not using the kit lens in this scenario because I wanted the depth of field. I wanted to make sure that I let you all know that you are able to accomplish a nice separation from the background by making something sharp or in focus and something out of focus, which then allows you to create separation even if your lighting is not perfect. Because our eyes are going to naturally be drawn to what is in focus, and the stuff that is not in focus is dismissed of sorts. So the kit lens, it's a 14 to 30. This is an APS-C lens. And what is the f-stop on this thing? I don't know what the f-stop is. So it's an f4 because it's a zoom lens to 5.3? No, 6.3. So it's a variable aperture, which really means that you only get the f4 at the wide end of the lens. And as you zoom in, the f-stop gets smaller, which really means that your depth of field increases, right? So more things are going to be in focus the more you zoom in. So that's one thing to note. If you want a shallower depth of field, then I'm using, and I know that we've seen a lot of content around this on YouTube, but for my taste, for streaming quality, for anything having to do with the web, or anything having to do with that is essentially not going to be mastered onto, say, a 4K Blu-ray DVD or 8K master of some sort. If you're going to go to broadcast, or you're going to go to streaming, or you're going to go to social media, the lens that I'm using is beyond good enough in terms of resolution. And also f-stop, because the f-stop on this lens, I think it's like a 1 something, 1.2, 1.4, something like that. So it's the Siri, how do you say that? Yeah, Sirui, Nightwalker. So it's the Nightwalker lens, and I am using, let me just double check. This is the 16 millimeter Nightwalker lens, and I'm touching the lens right now. So I am roughly 3 feet away, and then this is what you guys can see or get in terms of both field of view and then also depth of field from being 3 feet away using the Canon R50V and this 16 millimeter Nightwalker lens wide open, right? So it's at whatever the T-stop is. 1.2, I don't even know. So there you go. We're doing this in real time. So this is T12 Nightwalker on the R50V. And this is the image that we're getting. I don't have any overlights or overhead lights on. On the other side of, right in front of me, I have a sound panel that is 6 feet by probably 6.5 high. So 6 feet wide by 6.5 high. I have a sound panel. That is then also right in front of a window that is on the other side of the sound panel. And that is the fill light that you guys are seeing. I do have a key light here. This is the Amaran, whatever the flapjack type, big giant flapjack Amaran, and it is set currently to 4% at 5400 Kelvin. And then I have the little 10-watt small rig spotlight thing that is creating the little blue bubbles in the back. That's all the light. So this is what you can expect. And again, if you look at like the top of my desk, which is black, this is glass, but you can see there is a bit of grain to it, but also there is no fixed pattern noise. And maybe even more importantly, and I don't know that every camera does this, because Gerald Undone posted a video earlier this week where he was talking about how to get the most out of your uploads to YouTube, and then what it is that you might be able to do to avoid things like banding and so on and so forth. Well, there's nothing worse than live streaming, right? Because in live streaming, not only are we sending a signal to YouTube, but YouTube is converting it in real time and then processing it or sending it out to people. And what Gerald was discussing was about how the gradients, so like gradients this is, that's a gradient, right? So like brighter, not as bright as we go off into the edges, and everywhere that you begin to see a little bit of shadow, that would, that is a gradient, and that is something that YouTube, when they do their compression based on the signal that they're receiving, may choose to create artifacts or blockiness or essentially crush information in the gradients that then create that weird artifact that we see and what Gerald was talking about. Well, one thing that I've never seen happen, this is going to sound like I'm biased, but I'm not. I promise you I'm not. But I've never seen that happen when the footage comes from a Canon camera that is shooting in 10-bit 422, or RAW for that matter, or a RED camera, period. I have seen the blockiness that happens from the codecs that come out of Sony cameras. I don't have a Sony camera to create or try to recreate a test and then prove myself right or wrong, but I can tell you that at least on the C200, the 5D Mark IV, the 5D Mark III, the R5C, the R5, the C300, C300 Mark II, C500 Mark II, C70, C80, and now even the R50V. I don't have gradient problems when I'm uploading to YouTube. If you've seen something different and you want to leave it in a comment, be sure to do so, because I think that's helpful for a lot of people. But there is something to the way that these codecs work and the way that these codecs are expected or ingested into YouTube that then affect that. So let's go back to the R50V. One thing that I did not expect, and I was really hopeful that it wouldn't happen, is the Canon R5C as an example. If I plug my mixer, which is the Rodecaster, right? So if I do the Rodecaster, I output into the R5C and I'm trying to live stream, there is this low, continuous hum in the audio signal. And the only way to avoid it is to use an external mixer or external appliance, like in my case now, the Tascam, where I use the hot shoe to interface and then send the signal from my mixer to the Tascam and then into the camera, which then makes it out to the live stream, where we don't have this continuous hum that happens. I would demonstrate it, but I don't want to blow anybody's ears out if you guys are just listening. But just trust me when I say that is there on the R5C. And I hate to report that it's also there on the R50V. I don't know if it's because I'm also using USB-C power delivery to keep the camera going, because the battery is tiny. And the battery life on that, let's just say if I, for some reason, ended up doing a live stream that lasted a whole hour or longer, there's a possibility that we would not finish because I would kill my battery and I wouldn't have a camera at that point. So because the battery life is poor and because I'm not using a dummy battery, I'm then powering my R50V using the USB-C directly into mains. So I'm using USB-C and powering the camera. The upside is that when the camera is not running, it also charges the battery. Do I rely on the battery? And the answer is no. Should I lose mains power? The camera can continue to roll because it's got a battery. For how long? Let's say, if we're lucky, 30 minutes, right? If everything goes, if I wasn't doing audio through the camera also, maybe it would go longer. So this leads me then to another topic on the R50V, and that is the Tascam unit itself. Many of you who have followed me over the years know that I have a love-hate relationship with the Tascam unit that interfaces with the Canon cameras. The main reason is that the very first Tascam unit that I bought worked for exactly 1 day before it died, and then I needed to have an alternate solution while I was working. So it kicked me straight up in the nuts, right in the middle of work. I was not happy about it. And I was bitter about it and talked about it a lot on social media because it generally, it got under my skin, and I was so disappointed because unlike every other thing when I'm planning, I only brought one instead of two, and I only bought one because at the time they were released in limited availability. So I couldn't buy two because there weren't two in stock when I bought them. And I was traveling. I was in Canada when this happened. So I wasn't super happy about it. Fast forward to now, the units I own now work without any issue. On the Canon R5C, I don't need to use the AA battery underneath the Tascam unit to power the actual Tascam unit, so I can use my XLRs or actually feed in an amp a mixer like I'm doing now on this R50V setup. On the R50V, I have to use the batteries because the camera, obviously tiny battery, doesn't have enough juice to actually power up the Tascam unit. The good news is the Tascam unit works. Bad news is you need to use AA batteries. Another thing you should know is that after you turn off the camera, and if you turn it back on, you have to disengage the Tascam unit from the hot shoe, push it out, and then re-engage it before the camera recognizes the accessory and allows you to use it. In other words, you can't just leave it mounted and expect that it's going to work every time. You need to take it off, slide it back in, lock it in place, and then the camera recognizes we got an accessory that we're going to be using, and now it works. Forgetting to turn off the Tascam unit is the easiest way to run down your batteries in the Tascam unit, which then also means you have to remember to have extra batteries on hand in case you forgot to turn off the Tascam unit. It is what it is. It's the convenience of the inconvenience of using a smaller camera with a smaller battery, but knowing this could potentially save you. And now for the wildest thing that you might have heard about the R50V. The very first day that I got it, and this has happened more than once, by the way, I set it up in this scenario, just like you see. So it's there, it's running as my webcam, my live streaming cam, and it works. It works great. Sound works great. It records great. The colors are nice. Everything is as expected. Imagine that after your meeting, say it was 30, 40-minute meeting. You sign off, you close out, whether it be Teams that you were on, or you were using Google Meet, or any other software, Zoom, you name it. You recorded yourself doing a tutorial or maybe social media content, whatever. You turn everything off and you forget to turn off the camera. And why would you forget to turn off the camera? Well, even if you have the LCD screen flipped out and then facing you so you can actually see it, after some time, the LCD screen goes black. So it looks like the camera's shut off. And if you're working or you were in a meeting or whatever, it's easy enough to forget that the camera's still running. So I left the camera running, as in turned on, not streaming or anything, just camera was turned on. It had USB-C power delivery to it, so it stayed on an entire weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. On Tuesday, when I needed to use it again, I went to turn it on and I'm like, oh shit, the camera's on already. Did I not turn it off on Friday when I finished using it? Well, apparently I didn't. So hopefully the camera's still running. Turn on my streaming software, or not streaming, I'm sorry, my conferencing software, which I was on Teams. And when you know it, the image popped right up. So the camera stayed on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and most of the day Monday. And it never overheated, obviously indoors, in space. I've already told you, I keep it nice and cool in here, especially on days when I'm wearing a sweatshirt. Brandon, I'm talking to you. But the camera stayed on. And it worked. And it's had zero issues. And that was only one of a handful of times that I have accidentally forgot to turn off the camera, and I don't have any issues. And I turned off the little feature where it's like power saving mode, whatever, or low resolution HDMI on standby. I turned all that off. Which then leads me to sort of my thoughts on the R50V. One, I'm impressed by how small it is. Two, I don't love the battery solution. I think the battery is too small. I wish they would have made it a little bit thicker and allowed us to use the same batteries that we are now using on the R5 Mark II and the R5C, that have that extra capacity, which constant draw, whatever it is that it does. I wish that we could use those batteries. I like what it's able to do in terms of image quality. C-Log 3 for this camera on this sensor is beautiful. I think it's perfect and ideal. I like that the Tascam unit works, even though I need to remember to turn it off and also have a spare set of AA batteries if I'm planning on using it. But I am really looking forward to whatever Canon decides to do for a video-focused version of their full-frame mirrorless lineup. Because if they make a version similar to this, with similar capabilities, that is full frame, where I can use my full frame glass to its fullest, because I have a lot of RF glass, there is zero chance I'm not picking one up. And now I also don't feel bad or feel any kind of way that Sony has this, whatever their little tiny mirrorless solution was, RX something, I don't even know. Whatever they had. Hey, Scotty, good to see you, man. So I'm a fan of the R50V. I'm a fan to the point where this is not about offending anyone, okay? Because everybody makes decisions based on what works for them. I happen to have a lot of Canon lenses, and a lot of those lenses are RF lenses, as in a lot. So for me, moving out my Blackmagic full frame L mount cameras out of the podcast studio and bringing in Canon R50Vs with this Siri, however it is that we say this brand of lenses, and using it in the podcast studio for multicam when I know they can run for days and give me good separation, good color, regardless of skin tone, and allow me to feed in high quality audio straight into the camera. It's like game over, right? I don't need to worry about a lot of things if essentially all of my challenges are being met. And the R50V does that, and does that really, really well. And could I take it out of the studio and just, pocket a handful of batteries and, maybe shoot a project if I needed to with it? Yeah, probably. But for the use case that I'm using it in, where, again, in this case, it's my webcam, my live streaming cam, and have it perform better than any other camera I've ever had in its spot. And I've never had a red in there, and I've never had an R5C in that spot. So just, or a C70 or a C80 or anything bigger, okay? But again, having it do its job, and then also have it do this level of job in a podcast studio where we are running 3 to 5 of them, recording our clients doing their little podcast thing in a codec that is super easy to edit, that requires essentially no work or no touch-ups in terms of changing color, contrast, and so on, for an online delivery or social media delivery. It's a no-brainer. At this price point, like, you don't need to buy the kit lens. You could just buy the body only, and I think the body only is what, under 500, right? And with all these crazy tariff incentive sales that are happening with some of these third-party lenses, like the Sirui, whatever, Nightwalkers, you could end up with all the lenses you need and all the bodies you need and spend under $800 per system and be in such good shape for a multi-camera shoot. And it's tiny. And if you choose to use their kit lens, the autofocus is awesome. And the zoom feature is also awesome because it's optical zoom. It's just, I don't know, it's such a good deal. And if any of you are interested in the camera, I did put a link in the description. Know that it's an affiliate link. Know that if you choose to use it, I will be compensated through affiliate sales for that. And you should also know that I am committed, and have been, to making sure that 100% of all affiliate income that comes into this channel is redistributed back to creators on YouTube. In other words, I don't keep a penny of it. Haven't. And over the years, I've made sure that I've supported other creators either financially, through gear, or the combination of the two to honor my position on how income is collected on this channel. So I guess the short of it is I really like the Canon R50V. I like it to the tune of, like I said, it's running in my podcast studio. It is now permanently here as my live stream and webcam type camera, or business conference type camera in my home office. I think I have one also. I do have one in my studio. And if I'm not mistaken, essentially everybody in the company, we're not there yet, but everyone in the company wants to move towards this as their solution because of the tiny footprint and the big punch. And of course, the big punch being I'm in focus, the background isn't. That separation is not easy to achieve with essentially any other camera other than like a full frame camera or a camera that has a large enough sensor and you have a lens that opens up wide enough to allow you to do that. And for the price, this is very, very difficult to beat. And if you need autofocus and you don't really care as much about the separation, the kit lens does wonders. The reason why this kit lens has this little thing on it is because this is the ring where the Elgato teleprompter sits into in case I ever need to reference notes, or I was going to say read a script, but I don't normally read scripts, and you guys probably know that. But that's the reason why. Because at that point, what's most important is that I get my point across versus the separation thing. And also, if I'm recording here, it's probably not mission critical. If I'm recording in the studio, it's probably intended for marketing purposes or, to be supplemental to some sort of treatment or something, some RFP that we're responding to of some sort. So that's what I got. If any of you have any questions on the R50V, do let me know. I'd be happy to try to address them. I think the biggest takeaway is that the battery life is not awesome. Powering it via USB-C power delivery is essentially indefinite because I've allowed mine to run an entire weekend, as in 3 days plus, and the camera continued to operate without any issues, no overheating, no warning, no stop functioning, no needing to reset, no anything. The Tascam unit up on top, it cannot be powered by the camera body itself. You need to use the AA batteries. It doesn't really matter what kind of AA batteries, whether they're rechargeable or not. You have to remember to turn that off. Otherwise, it will run them down and you will want a spare. And if you choose to use your mixer and send the mixer signal, audio signal, straight into the camera, you can expect interference to happen. And it's not fun, and it is constant, and it is annoying, and it is difficult to clean up in post. So using the Tascam unit is the better way of getting audio, or using a lavalier system if that's what you're using. And I think on that note, the only other thing I want to say is that, so I'm a big believer of not fixing audio in post-production. And I'm also someone who is really appreciating the convenience of using something like the Hollyland Mark II something audio, the little clip thing. It works really well. But make no mistake about this. The lavaliers, those 2.4 gigahertz lavaliers, it doesn't matter from which company, the audio quality out of them is limited by the microphone capsule and then the way that the signal is both encrypted and then sent over to your camera. And if you want to try this yourself, use the absolute best lavalier that you own, record a sample, and then compare it to the same sample that you might have used with any one of these 2.4 gigahertz systems, and you will very quickly notice and hear a decisive difference as to which one is better than the other, simply because one is able to capture all of what your voice is able to articulate. That makes you sound more human and less canned or compressed. And then keep that in mind as you're making decisions about which audio system you want to use for what situation. Now, after everything that just came out of my mouth, I'm going to tell you, if your delivery is to social media, use whatever is the most convenient. Because social media is not going to try to give you high definition audio. They're going to try to give you consumable audio, as in audio that no one's going to complain about, because they're going to get what they want out of it, and they're going to forget about it, 3 to 5 minutes later. And this is why I think for me, this is maybe a good time for me to share this. This is why for me, it's becoming more and more true now to choose the tool, as in my camera or my audio gear, whatever, that fits the project. For the first time, this is July 2025. So for the first time since I bought my very first Red digital cinema camera, can I say that my Red digital cinema cameras were used less than 50% of the time on projects in July 2025. And at this point, given that today's the 25th and we're going into a weekend, there is no way my Red cameras are going to catch up to the amount of work that all the other cameras, the C80, the R5C, the Lumix S1 II. Any other cameras? That's it for motion. Have actually done in July. The market's shifting, and it's our job to adjust. And trying to be a purist about everything is not a solution or not sustainable, at least not anymore. King, will it overheat? So, King, you might have missed this, but here's the short version. I forgot to turn off my R50V on a Friday. Came back to use it again on a Monday evening. So it had been running all day Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all day Monday until the evening when I was about to use it. And the camera did not overheat, did not shut down, and it was ready to use without any glitches, problems, or issues. That says something. And the reason why I didn't know I'd left it on is because the LCD screen shuts itself off after some time. So to me, it looked like it was off as I'm facing the camera, and I just went about my moment and forgot to turn it off. So it's just that weird. But again, one of the reasons why I think for a lot of people, it's probably a good camera. It's a good camera. And especially if you're using it in studio where you can actually power it via USB-C. If you're, out and about and, using it to shoot your kid's soccer game or something, you probably want to have, I'm going to say 3 to 5 batteries with you, because my guess is those little tiny batteries are not going to last more than 30 minutes a pop. I haven't actually attempted to use it on battery power only, but if I am trying to run audio and sending HDMI video out, there's no way this little tiny battery is going to be of any use. I just don't see it, and it would be unfair for me to expect that it would perform like, say, a cinema camera. It's just not going to, because that's not what the camera is. Cool. Well, we've been at this for 56 minutes. If we don't have any other questions, or we don't have any questions, I should say, I think we're going to wrap it up. And, big shout out to everybody who does YouTube Live, because you all don't know how much it means to those of us who are fans, how much we enjoy it, how much we enjoy consuming it. And I am thankful for Brandon and Jarrell for their show every Friday at 11 a.m. Even when I miss it, I catch it on the replay. And I wish Scott was back at his 4 o'clock so I wouldn't have to do any lives at 4 and I could just be a consumer. But until Scott gets back, I'm going to try to fill that 4 p.m. Friday slot and then kind of see where we go from there. See if we could either grow it or convince Scott to come back. One of the two. And I have no idea what the time difference is in Alaska. But he's been posting. It sounds like he's enjoying Alaska, which is awesome, right? Because moving from Texas to Alaska seems a bit extreme. But it's all about quality of life. And what you all don't know, because I don't think I've shared any of this, is that we'll leave it for another show. But we've experienced some death in our family, and it puts a lot of things into perspective, especially at my age. If you're in your 20s, probably doesn't matter. But I'm double that, right? I'm 52. So it's the things that matter. And there's a lot of noise, and that noise does not matter. So with that, and I don't see anything else coming up in the comments, so I will catch up with you guys next Friday. Hopefully we can do this again at 4 p.m. And maybe we make it a thing until we get Scott back. Thanks for joining. And until next time, I'm Carlos. Take care.